What if an old man with silver hair and a weathered beard suddenly managed to fix Elon Musk's Tesla in the middle of a desolate field? Would you believe that moment could change the future of space exploration? This wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny. A retired NASA engineer carrying a heart once shattered by loss crossed paths with a man considered the symbol of tomorrow, Elon Musk. And what happened next might just make you rethink how we see the people society often overlooks. If you believe that kindness and talent are never outdated values, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more powerful, heart-stirring stories like this one. Part 1. A chance encounter on a lonely road late afternoon. The last golden rays of sunlight bathed the empty countryside in a quiet amber hue. Trees lining the roadside swayed gently in the breeze, whispering to time itself. Along a deserted rural stretch, a sleek black Tesla Model X had come to a silent stop by the grassy shoulder. Inside, Elon Musk, the man the world knew for his dreams of colonizing Mars and revolutionizing technology, sat with his eyes closed, resting after a long day filled with back-to-back meetings and relentless schedules. No assistants, no bodyguards, just a man, a car, and a mind filled with unspoken thoughts. In that rare moment of stillness, Elon allowed the breeze to slip through a crack in the window, savoring a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. But then, a thin trail of smoke rose from the hood, slicing through his reverie. Elon opened his eyes, frowning. Something was clearly wrong. He stepped outside, concern etched on his face as he peered into the engine bay. Just then, from a distance, an older man approached slowly. Slung over his shoulder was a faded canvas bag. His kind eyes held a quiet depth, the kind that only comes from years of living. He stopped beside the car and spoke in a hoarse but warm voice. "Trouble with the engine? If you don't mind, I might be able to help. Used to work for NASA. These complex systems, I've seen plenty in my day." Elon blinked, surprised. Before he could respond, the man had already knelt down, pulling out an old spool of wire, a voltage tester, and a few worn tools from his bag. No showmanship, no hesitation. Every movement was deliberate and precise. There was something in his gaze, not just knowledge, but the depth of time, of a life touched by both triumph and loss. Elon stood silently, watching, no longer skeptical. Perhaps this wasn't just a random encounter. Part 2. A man from the past. Within minutes, the troubled Tesla came back to life, its engine humming softly, as if nothing had ever gone wrong. Elon sat inside, stunned by the precision and skill of the man who had just performed what seemed like a quiet miracle. He stepped out, gazing at the stranger with deep respect. "Truly, thank you," Elon said. "I didn't think anyone could fix this that fast. May I ask, what's your name?" The man wiped the sweat from his brow, then gave a soft smile. "My name's Victor. I used to be a lead engineer at NASA, specialized in electrical systems for space missions. But that was a different life." The words hit Elon like a distant echo, the name Victor pulling with it a past that seemed to drift back slowly from the edge of memory. "NASA? Then why are you here, alone on a quiet road like this?" Victor didn't answer right away. He sat down on the grassy roadside, eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of quiet gold. "I once lived in the spotlight of glory," he began, voice low. "I was part of grand projects that brought humanity closer to the stars. But then, my wife, Sophie, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. She couldn't care for herself. I had a choice: keep my career or be with the woman I loved." He paused, his voice dipping into a silence heavy with memory. His eyes shimmered with a sorrow that time hadn't erased. "I chose Sophie. I resigned, left NASA, walked away from it all to become her husband, fully and truly, not an engineer, not a hero, just a man sitting beside the woman who was slowly leaving this world." Elon was speechless. In front of him wasn't just a roadside mechanic. It was a man who had walked through the deepest crossroads of life: love, sacrifice, and loss. "And now?" Elon asked quietly. "Now that she's gone?" Victor nodded gently, his voice soft like the evening breeze. When Sophie passed, I had no reason to stay anywhere. I packed a few keepsakes and began walking. No destination, but I kept helping where I could. It's my way of staying alive. For her. In that silent field, Elon felt something no formula or algorithm had ever taught him. The strength of love, of devotion, and of a sacrifice that sought no recognition. And for the first time in years, Elon Musk felt small. Part 3. An invitation from a man who walked through storms. The last hues of sunset faded over the vast field, leaving behind two men, one representing the future with dreams reaching for the stars, and the other a living witness to some of aerospace's greatest milestones. Elon stood quietly for a long while, gazing at Victor with a look that blended respect and contemplation. Victor, you know, I've met a lot of brilliant people, but very few make me want to stop and truly listen like you do. Victor offered only a faint smile, as if not wanting to leave a mark. But Elon continued, his voice low and sincere. I don't believe this was a random encounter. You showed up, helped me at the exact right moment, and told a story I'll never forget. Maybe it's a sign, from the universe, from Sophie, or maybe just life itself. Victor remained silent. Something stirred inside him, like a late summer breeze brushing gently across an old wound. Elon took a step closer, his eyes lighting up with quiet resolve. I want to invite you to SpaceX, not as just another engineer, but as a senior advisor, someone the entire team can learn from, not only for their expertise, but for their character. We need people who've sat on the edge between logic and emotion. People like you. Victor let out a soft chuckle, humble and weathered. Elon, I'm an old man. I don't even know how to use half the new software you guys are developing. I've got nothing left to offer. You're wrong, Elon gently interrupted. We can train skills, but life experience, calm under pressure, and the wisdom earned from falling and getting back up, that's not something you learn in school. And that's exactly what's missing in tech today. Victor bowed his head, his fingers intertwined. That offer had stirred something dormant in him, a part that had gone to sleep the day Sophie left. There was something in Elon's eyes that convinced him. This wasn't pity. It was rare and genuine respect. Finally, Victor gave a small nod. If you truly believe I still have something to give, then I'll try. One more time. For Sophie, and for myself. Elon couldn't hold back a smile. He reached out, and the two men, one a keeper of the past, the other a builder of the future, shook hands in the dimming light of day. Above them, a small star blinked into view in the indigo sky. Perhaps it was Sophie, smiling. Part 4. A footstep between two worlds. On his first morning at SpaceX, Victor stood quietly in front of the towering glass building, its gleaming SpaceX logo reflecting the early light. Though he had weathered many storms in life, his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the collar of his freshly pressed shirt, the first gift Elon had sent along with the formal invitation. Sarah, the HR director, came out to greet him with a warm smile. We're ready for you. The whole team's excited to meet Mr. Victor. Victor simply nodded, his smile slow and sincere. Inside, his nervousness didn't feel like fear. It felt almost like hope. Stepping into the main engineering bay, Victor was transported back to his early days at NASA. But this time, everything was faster, sleeker, younger. Young engineers zipped around with laptops, circuit boards, and intricate spacecraft prototypes in hand. A few curious glances skimmed over Victor, the silver-haired man standing silently in the buzzing hive of activity. Is that the old guy Elon brought in? Someone whispered nearby. Heard he's ex-NASA, but can he keep up with us? Victor heard it all, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he walked over to an empty workstation, opened his weathered canvas bag, pulled out a ballpoint pen, a small notebook, and began quietly observing. All morning, he didn't interrupt any meetings, offer unsolicited advice, or share stories of past glory. He just sat, silent as a stone in a rushing stream, watching, listening, and taking notes. Every furrowed brow, every faulty circuit prototype, he recorded neatly and patiently. At lunch, when the lab had mostly emptied, Victor calmly rose, approached the technical board stuck on a particularly stubborn piece of code. He circled one spot with his pen and quietly wrote a single note beside it. Check auxiliary power line. This might be your main choke point. Without another word, he walked out of the room as if he'd never been there. That afternoon, the engineering team discovered Victor was right. An overloaded circuit caused by an unstable auxiliary power feed, something no current software had caught, had been their hidden bottleneck. The lab went still. Those once skeptical eyes shifted into a quiet, collective respect. When Victor returned later, a young engineer walked up and asked softly, "Sir, how did you know that was the issue?" Victor just smiled, his eyes calm like the sky before a summer rain. "Because I made that mistake once, and once was enough." Part 5, The Teacher in the Shadows. After the circuit board incident, the atmosphere in SpaceX's engineering bay began to shift. Victor, the quiet silver-haired man, was no longer referred to in whispers as Elon's old guy. Whenever he entered, young engineers would lift their heads, their eyes now a mix of respect and curiosity. But Victor never acted superior. He maintained the same humility and quiet presence as when he first arrived. He didn't lecture, didn't command. He appeared when someone was stuck, offering a guiding question or a quiet suggestion that was eerily spot on. One late afternoon, Alex, a hot-headed and famously arrogant young engineer, approached him. "Mr. Victor, I heard you once designed out the electrical systems for the Columbia shuttle? But what I really want to know is, weren't you ever afraid of failing?" Victor gently set down his cup of tea. His eyes drifted to the large glass window, where the sunset was painting the skies above the SpaceX factory in hues of amber and crimson. "You know," he said slowly, "of course I was. Once, I nearly ruined an entire mission because I chose the wrong architecture for a circuit layout. The whole team worked 3 nights straight to fix it. But that's when I learned the most important lesson. A great engineer isn't someone who never makes mistakes, but someone who knows how to listen to the failure." Alex stood silent for a long time. Then he whispered, "I want to learn that." From that day on, Victor became the team's unofficial mentor. Engineers started calling him something more personal, Uncle Vic. There were no lectures, no podiums, just stories about NASA, about Sophie, his late wife, and lessons from life interwoven with technical wisdom. He once said, "At NASA, we were taught to see a single screw as if it held the life of the entire shuttle, because sometimes one loose screw could mean hundreds of millions of dollars lost, and a crew lost at sea." That line was later engraved on the corner of the engineering bay, a silent reminder to every pair of young hands. Victor also proposed a new initiative, the Engineers Dialogue. Every week, one junior engineer would present an idea, and the room would respectfully debate it. No judgment, only learning. Elon approved it instantly. One day, after a session, a young female engineer teared up and said, "You didn't just help me fall back in love with engineering. You made me believe I could build something that truly matters." Victor smiled. No one knew how many lonely nights he had endured after Sophie passed, how he once thought his life had quietly ended. But now, in the hopeful eyes of the next generation, he saw a reflection of who he once was. And more than anything, he saw Sophie smiling, somewhere among the stars. Part 6, A Mark Left in the Sky. The days passed quietly at SpaceX, but within the engineering teams, a new kind of energy began to surge. Victor, once a quiet figure in the corner of the lab, had now become a living inspiration for a whole generation of young engineers. One morning in May, Elon entered the engineering briefing room with a rare look on his face. Calm, reflective. He greeted the team, then slowly pulled off the white cloth covering the model of a new spacecraft. Under the soft lights, a name gleamed on the side of the ship, etched in polished silver alloy. Sophie. Like a moonbeam in the night sky, the room fell silent. Victor froze. His hands trembled, and his eyes couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. It was the name of his late wife, the woman who had once been his whole universe. the one he had left NASA for to stay by her side until her final days. "Elon, this is," Victor whispered. Elon placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice steady, his eyes sincere. "Victor, you haven't just restored complex systems. You've restored something deeper. Our belief that engineering needs more than intellect. It needs heart. We want Sophie's name to fly, to honor you and everyone who has loved quietly behind every dream." Applause erupted in the room, but Victor stood still. His tears fell, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, like the love he carried for Sophie. The next day, the team held a small dedication ceremony. During the christening of the Sophie spacecraft, Elon addressed the crowd. "We often praise the astronauts, but forget the silent heroes behind them. Victor is one of those. The Sophie isn't just a piece of engineering. It's a symbol of loyalty, sacrifice, and love that transcends space." After the ceremony, Victor pulled a small notebook from his jacket, the technical journal Sophie had gifted him on their wedding day. He walked to the ship, opened the book to its first page, and gently placed it in the cockpit. "Let's fly together, Sophie," he whispered. No one spoke. But in that silence, everyone felt it. This wasn't a story about science anymore. It was a love story written into the sky. Shortly afterward, Elon formally appointed Victor as the founding mentor of SpaceX's legacy advisory program, The Path to Saturn, a bridge between seasoned engineers and the new generation. For Victor, the journey didn't end with losing Sophie. It began again, with memory, gratitude, and a renewed desire to serve. That night, the sky above SpaceX shimmered with more stars than usual. But in Victor's heart, there was only one star that mattered: Sophie, smiling at him from somewhere far beyond. Part 7. A New Door. Old Memories. After the unveiling ceremony of the spacecraft named Sophie, Victor became a living legend at SpaceX headquarters. No longer just a veteran engineer, he was now a mentor, one who ignited the fire in an entire generation of young engineers embarking on their journey to explore the stars. Victor often found himself on the rooftop of SpaceX after a long day's work. The night sky above stretched endlessly, full of stars and hope. But in his heart, the brightest star remained the one etched onto the side of the ship: Sophie, a name carved not only in metal but deep within his memory, where nothing could fade it. The next morning, Elon walked into Victor's office holding a small wooden box. "Victor," Elon said softly, "I think it's time we made this official." Inside the box was a sleek metal plaque engraved with the words, "Victor's Sophie Research Lab, honoring love, wisdom, and timeless devotion." The main lab, where Victor had once pored over tangled wiring diagrams, was now officially named after him and his late wife. As the plaque was mounted, the young engineers paused their work and erupted into applause. Some wiped tears from their eyes, not because they knew the whole story, but because they could feel the invisible power of honest love and quiet dedication. A month later, Victor launched a new mentorship initiative called The Path to Saturn. Unlike any previous technical training course, Victor began the first session with a line no one expected. "Listen, not just to machines, but to yourself, because your intuition will guide you when no textbook can." In the days that followed, Victor didn't teach through dry lectures. He told stories, from fixing shuttle errors at midnight to the sleepless nights beside Sophie's hospital bed. And with every story, every glance, the classroom grew quieter, as if everyone was listening not just with their minds, but with their hearts. One afternoon, after class ended, a young engineer approached him. "Mr. Victor, I used to think I'd just be another technician, but now I want to build something greater, something meaningful." Victor smiled, placing a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder. "Then you've learned the truth. An engineer doesn't just build machines, he builds dreams that rise and makes sure they never lose their way." That night, back on the familiar rooftop, Victor opened the old notebook Sophie had once gifted him. He scribbled a few lines. "Sophie, today I spoke of you again, but this time, not just for myself. For those who will fly far, carrying your name into the sky. The night sky sparkled once more, but this time, Victor wasn't a lonely man gazing upward. He was the keeper of a light, and he was passing it on to the next generation. On the rooftop of SpaceX's tallest building, Mr. Victor stood in silence, his aged eyes gazing up at the star-filled sky, a sky he had spent his entire life contributing to, circuit by circuit, blueprint by blueprint, dream by dream. The cool night breeze brushed past him, soft as a familiar whisper. Below, the spacecraft named Sophie, after his late wife, was being prepared for launch into the cosmos. The shimmering silver letters along the hull sparkled like a timeless tribute, a love song set to sail through the galaxy. Elon Musk, once hailed as the genius of the future, now stood quietly beside Mr. Victor. Because he understood, greatness doesn't just come from a brilliant mind. It requires a heart that's been broken and still chooses to love again. A soul that dares to give, even after loss. Not everyone gets a chance to rise from the ashes of their own past. But Victor did. And he didn't just return. He left a legacy, not just through technology, but through the humanity he carried with him. And sometimes, the greatest thing we can leave behind is the way we loved, the way we lived, and the way we refused to give up. A new star blinked to life in the night sky.